Because what was happening to Goku was not something that had a name in any scripture Whis had ever studied. Goku was no longer human at that moment. His face streamed with energy, rivers of white light running down his cheeks like tears made of pure power, evaporating before they could fall. The ground beneath his feet had long since ceased to exist as solid matter. He stood in the center of a crater of his own making, suspended slightly above the molten earth, the heat of his output so immense that the air itself was bending around him, warping the landscape behind him like a desert mirage, but violent, consuming. His body trembled as if it were trying to expel something greater than itself. Like a vessel filled past its capacity, every muscle, every vein, every fiber of him visibly strained against what was surging through him. It was not transformation in any sense that Bardock or anyone present had witnessed before, and his body was the only thing standing between that force and everything else. Bardock took a step closer, then another. The heat was unbearable this close. It pressed against his skin like a physical wall, but he did not stop. His eyes were fixed on his son's face, on the expression there that was not Goku's expression, on the eyes that were open but looking at something none of them could see. Bardock spoke, his voice trembling as he reached out to him. "Goku, calm down. Don't move. I'm going to free you from these chains. Trust me." For one single instant, barely a fraction of a second, something shifted in Goku's face, a flicker, like a candle flame disturbed by a breath from very far away, the faintest echo of recognition, of the boy who had grown up on Earth, of the man who laughed too easily and trusted too completely and had never once in his life stopped believing that things could be made right.
Bardock saw it, his hand extended further. But the moment he tried to break the energy bindings, a terrifying sound echoed, like the scream of the universe itself. Every god of destruction on the battlefield stopped mid-motion. Every angel went rigid. Vegeta's attack died in his hands before it left his fingertips. Even the molten ground seemed to pause mid-flow. And then Goku blasted Bardock away with such force that he crashed into a massive rock. The rock, a formation that had stood for thousands of years, dense and ancient, did not slow Bardock down so much as it simply stopped him, collapsing around him in an avalanche of shattered stone. He hit it back first, the impact sending a spiderweb of cracks radiating outward across its entire face before the whole thing gave way and buried him in rubble. Dust rose in a pillar. Silence. Then, from within the rubble, a bloodied hand pushed slowly through the debris. Bardock dragged himself halfway out, one arm trembling, his head bowed, breathing in ragged pulls. He did not look defeated. He looked like a man who had been hit by something he had chosen to stand in front of, and would choose to stand in front of again. His eyes lifted back toward his son. A strange laugh escaped from Goku's mouth, a laugh that wasn't his. It was wrong in a way that bypassed logic and went directly to instinct. Too low, too knowing, too comfortable, like something that had been waiting a very long time for this moment and found the arrival exactly as satisfying as it had anticipated. It was the laugh of something that never been young, had never been innocent, had never once in its existence been anything other than what it was. Old and vast and utterly without restraint. A laugh that made the very air tremble.
Every angel present took a full defensive formation simultaneously, not by order, not by signal, purely by reflex. The gods of destruction who had been mid-battle simply stopped, all of them, weapons lowered, postures changed, because every living thing in the vicinity was receiving the same signal from somewhere beneath thought, beneath training, beneath every layer of power and pride and divine authority they carried. Run. His hair suddenly spiked upward, rising to a terrifying extreme, and he took on a form that sent chills through every heart. It defied classification. It was not Super Saiyan. It was not Ultra Instinct. It borrowed the language of those forms the way lightning borrows the language of light, related but categorically more dangerous. His hair stood white and then shifted, cycling through colors that had no business existing in the visible spectrum, finally settling on something that pulsed like a dying star. His frame expanded slightly, not with muscle, but with presence, the way a shadow grows when the light behind it intensifies. His eyes became like two embers of pure light, not glowing, not shining, burning from within, as if whatever was behind them was consuming fuel that had no natural limit. A single one of his cries was enough to erase half a planet into nothingness. The explosion was that devastating, and left behind it the cellular certainty that existence itself had just been reminded it was fragile. Vegeta froze, unable to move. Whis raised an energy barrier that barely managed to hold. The barrier cracked in 4 places simultaneously. Whis pressed both hands to his staff, pouring angelic energy into the construct with everything he had, his expression, for the first time, stripped of its characteristic calm. The cracks spread, splintered, and then held, barely. The light on the other side of the barrier was blinding, and when it faded, Whis lowered his staff slowly and looked at what remained of the planet around them. His eyes were very still. "This," he said quietly to no one in particular, "is no longer within any boundary I have prepared for." High above, in the Grand Palace, Zeno watched everything from his throne. He had watched many things from that throne. He had watched universes end, had ended them himself, calmly and completely with the simple expression of will. He had watched gods of destruction perform their functions for billions of years. He had watched timelines branch and collapse. He had watched the rise of warriors so powerful that entire divine councils had convened in alarm. He had never looked like this. His eyes widened in terror, and his small body began to tremble. His attendants, the 2 small identical figures who flanked him at all times, pressed closer to him instinctively, their own eyes wide. One of them raised a tiny hand as if to reach for Zeno's arm and then stopped, unsure whether comfort was something they were permitted to offer. Around the throne room, the advisors and observers who were always present in perfect composure had gone completely, utterly still. No one spoke. No one moved. They all watched their king, the supreme ruler of all existence, tremble on his throne like a child who had just seen something in the dark that should not be there. Suddenly, the ground beneath him started shaking violently like never before. Not the trembling of a normal quake, not the aftershock of ki released in battle. This was something rising, something responding, a vibration that began far below the foundations of the Grand Palace and climbed upward through millions of tons of divine architecture, through marble and crystal and materials that had no name in any mortal language, shaking all of it the way a plucked string shakes the instrument it belongs to. A mysterious sound rose from beneath the palace, deep within the earth. It was not a sound anyone had heard before, but somehow every being in the Grand Palace recognized it the way living things recognize a storm before it arrives. Buried there, hidden in the planet's depths, was a secret palace. It was not discussed in any council. Even among the highest ranks of divine authority, there were perhaps 3 beings who knew it was there, and 2 of those beings had spent a very long time hoping it would never have reason to stir. The walls of this buried place were covered in markings that predated every language currently spoken in any of the 12 universes. The corridors were vast and perfectly dark, not because there was no light source, but because the darkness there was a substance, thick and deliberate, pressed into every corner like something that had been sealed in alongside whatever sat at the center. At its center stood a massive stone statue seated upon a colossal throne, stirred by the overwhelming power it had sensed from Goku. The statue was enormous, carved from a stone that was not stone, its surface etched with the same ancient markings that covered the walls around it. In the silence, in the absolute stillness of something that is not sleeping, but simply waiting, patient in the way that only truly ancient things can be patient. But now, its surface trembled. Hairline fractures ran along the edges of its carved fingers. A sound came from deep within it, the same sound that had traveled up through the foundations of the grand palace above. And the darkness around it, so still for so long, began to move. It was the source of the tremor shaking the palace. And somewhere in the layers of ancient markings covering its base, a single line, carved in a language older than the gods themselves, began to glow. On the battlefield, the sky looked like it was tearing apart, slowly dying. The winds were going absolutely crazy, howling like the screams of lost souls. No cap, it felt like the whole universe was about to catch an L. Goku raised his hand and unleashed something so unhinged, so unreal, that the air itself started glitching out. Bro wasn't holding back, not even a little. Everyone on that battlefield straight up froze. Nobody moved, nobody breathed. Wasn't even a vibe, just pure, suffocating terror. Even the gods of destruction, the same dudes who literally eat chaos for breakfast, were shook to their core. These were beings who had bodied entire civilizations without blinking, and they were standing there like lost kids. That's how different this hit. Because Goku? Nah, this wasn't Goku anymore. Not the goofy, carefree dude who was always down for a good fight and a big meal. This version, this was something else entirely. Low-key looked like he'd been cooked up straight from the center of chaos itself. His body was radiating this blazing, almost blinding light, and the energy coming off him was so heavy it felt like gravity itself was tapping out. Even the ground beneath him was cracking just from the aura alone. The whole battlefield was getting cooked without him throwing a single punch. Whis, W-H-I-S, the most composed, unbothered angel in all the universes, the dude who had literally never lost his cool in millions of years, had completely lost it. His eyes were wide, his usual smirk gone, his whole "I find this mildly interesting" energy deleted. Bro looked like he'd just seen something that wasn't supposed to exist. And Vegeta, the prince of all Saiyans, the same guy who'd rather die than admit he was scared, he was standing there frozen solid, fists clenched, jaw tight, staring up at Goku like he was looking at a stranger. His voice came out low, barely above a whisper, cracking just a little. "Kakarot, what have you become?" No pride, no rivalry. Just straight-up fear and disbelief from the one guy who swore he'd never be intimidated. Then, from the rubble, from all the dust and debris and broken ground, a figure slowly, painfully pulled itself up. Bardock. Battered, bleeding, covered in ash and dirt, but still standing. He lifted his head and looked up at his son, his own flesh and blood, and something in his eyes broke completely. He opened his mouth and the words came out shattered, like they cost him everything. "Why? Why are you doing this, my son? Don't you remember me? I'm your father." His voice was trembling,
His hands were shaking. This was the man who had fought entire armies without flinching, and right now he was standing there, helpless, just begging his son to come back. But Goku didn't move, didn't even blink, didn't turn around. He just stood there, wrapped in that dense, overwhelming aura of light, and within it, his eyes glowed cold, inhuman, like there was nobody home anymore. It was giving empty. It was giving gone. No one knew what to do. No one had a play. The whole battlefield was just stuck, paralyzed, like time itself didn't know how to move forward from this moment. Then, out of nowhere, a voice cut clean through the silence, calm, almost amused. "Ah, finally, let us put an end to this chaos." Every single head turned at the same time, and there he was, the Grand Minister, floating high above all of them, serene as ever. But something was off, way off. His hands were raised, and crawling up his arms were these strange, dark symbols, ancient markings, black as void that none of them had ever seen, not on any angel, not in any scripture, not anywhere. Whis' voice came out shaking, actually shaking, as he said, "No, not that magic. It is forbidden even among us. Forbidden among angels." Let that sink in for a sec. But it was already too late to call a timeout. No takebacks, no pausing. The Grand Minister locked in, slow and deliberate, and extended his hand straight toward Goku, and suddenly this thick, suffocating darkness exploded from his palms, moving like a starving creature. It shot forward faster than light and completely swallowed Goku before anyone could intervene. No warning, no time to react. 1 second Goku was there, next second, gone. Just like that. Vegeta's voice ripped through the sky before anyone else could even process what happened. "Kakarot!" Nothing came back. No answer, no energy signal, just silence. And that silence hit harder than any attack could. The white light faded out completely, and what was left behind was this heavy, suffocating air that pressed down on every single person still standing there, like the atmosphere itself was mourning. And that was just the aftermath, because what had happened before that moment, that was a whole different level of wrong. After Goku had tapped into pure luminous instinct, the battlefield stopped being a battlefield. It became a graveyard. He moved through everyone like they weren't even there. Angels, gods of destruction, didn't matter. Out of 100 angels, only a handful were still breathing. Most of the gods of destruction had been dropped. Only Beerus and a few others were still on their feet, barely, bloodied up, shaking, looking like they'd just survived something they had no business surviving. Everyone who was left standing understood the same thing at the same time without anyone having to say it out loud. Goku hadn't lost. He hadn't been beaten. The Grand Minister had banished him, thrown him into the Dark Fortress just to get him off the field. That was the only move that had worked. Inside the Dark Fortress, there was nothing. No sound, no direction, no sense of time moving at all. Just stillness, the kind that gets inside your head. Goku stood there, breathing hard, trying to get his bearings. His head was foggy, like he'd just woken up from something bad and couldn't quite shake it yet. Last thing I remember, I was training with Whis and Bardock, then that explosion, and then nothing. He said it quiet, mostly to himself, just trying to piece it together. But when he looked down at his hands, he went completely still. His skin wasn't right. It had changed into something he didn't recognize, a strange texture covered in these glowing symbols that were actually moving underneath the surface, slow and steady, like currents running through water. Each symbol pulsed with its own rhythm like a heartbeat, giving off this low, soft hum that felt almost alive, almost like voices, but not quite. He raised one hand slowly and just watched. The light shifted with his breath, responded to it.
What is this? This isn't Ultra Instinct. This is something different. He wasn't panicking, just stating it, trying to understand what he was looking at. But before he could even start to figure it out, something hit. A pressure coming from above, from everywhere at once, so massive and so sudden that it nearly dropped him to his knees, like something enormous had just turned its attention toward him. And whatever it wasn't playing around.
His knees slammed into the ground hard. The air got so thick it was like trying to breathe through concrete. Goku pushed back against it, tried to move, tried to fight it, but his body just locked up completely, like something had reached inside him and grabbed hold of something deeper than muscle and bone. Then the voices started. Whispers, coming from everywhere and nowhere. Languages he'd never heard before, layered on top of each other, getting louder by the second. "Get out of my head!" He gritted his teeth and pushed, hard. "I won't stop. I don't care how heavy this gets. No pressure, nothing is gonna make me fold. I have to keep going. I have to." But the whispers didn't care. They just kept building, stacking on top of each other, until it wasn't whispers anymore. It was noise, pure and overwhelming, filling every corner of his skull. He couldn't think, couldn't hold on to a single clear thought. And then the world around him just went dark. He dropped, unconscious before he even hit the ground. And one by one, the glowing symbols on his skin flickered, dimmed, and faded out completely, until he looked just like himself again. Just Goku, still, quiet, like none of it had ever happened. Back on the battlefield, the damage was already done. Bardock hit his knees, not from a hit, just from the weight of it. His hands found the ground, tears cutting clean lines through the dust and blood on his face. His voice came out barely holding together. "No. No, no, no. What did you do to my son? What did you people do to him?" Nobody answered him. Whis stood with his head down, eyes on the ground. Couldn't look at Bardock, couldn't look at anyone. For the first time in his existence, he genuinely had nothing to say. The silence didn't last long, though. Beerus, Belmod, and Moscow, the gods of destruction still on their feet, they spotted the opening and moved on it. But Vegeta was already there. He stepped forward and just let it go. Everything he'd been holding back, every ounce of restraint, gone. He came at them without a single hesitation, hitting clean and hitting hard, not giving anyone a second to breathe or reset. "All right, we're done playing around. You want to go? Then bring it, every single one of you." He caught one of them with a hit that sent shockwaves rippling across the ground and didn't even watch them fall before he was already moving to the next. "My power doesn't have an off switch. I'm not stopping until every last one of you is on the ground. You really think you can stop me, still?" He took another hit that grazed him, barely flinched, kept moving. "Come on then, all of you at once. I'll make sure each one of you remembers exactly what pain feels like." High above all of it, the Grand Minister watched, calm, unmoved, like he was watching something he'd already seen 100 times before. He lowered his hand slowly and spoke, voice flat and even. "It is finished. Every single thing that just happened, it was always going to go exactly like this." The Supreme Ruler stood motionless in the middle of the carnage. Half of his face was hidden in shadow, a cold smile forming across his lips as he slowly raised his hand. Above his head, a blue ring silently rotated, emitting a light that resembled the echo of souls. Whis whispered in fear, "We have to escape now." But before he could move, the Grand Minister released a blinding blue glow from the ring, striking the entire area in a single blast. Whis, Vegeta, and Bardock stopped, all three at once. Whis tried to move his fingers. They wouldn't. Not frozen like ice, frozen like they'd never existed in the first place. Whis, this isn't a simple freeze. He's not stopping our bodies.
He's stopping our timestamps, the exact moments that prove we're alive. Vegeta forced every last piece of willpower into one arm. Vegeta, I don't care what it is. I'm not stopping. I have never stopped. His arm crumbled before it moved an inch. No pain. Something worse than pain. The feeling of being erased before you even get to fight back. Bardock's eyes were still locked on the spot where Goku had vanished. Not the sky, not the ground. That exact spot. Empty now. Not just empty, wrong. Like the air itself refused to fill it. Bardock, where did you send you, Kakarot? Where did he send you? His throat locked before he could finish. The Grand Minister's laugh started slow, controlled. Then something inside it cracked open, and it wasn't a laugh anymore. It was something that had been waiting a very long time to come out. The Grand Minister, it's done. No one breaks the laws. No one rises above me. From today, there is no Goku. There is no hope. There is only order. My order. He turned directly to Whis, looked him straight in the eyes. You really thought you'd grown past me, didn't you, Whis? Thought you could break the rules for your little students? Put everything on the line for them? Look at what it got you. Look at what it always gets people who challenge my laws. Whis said nothing, but his eyes, the one thing the Freeze hadn't touched, carried something. Guilt, deep and immovable. The Grand Minister, it's over. No one will break the laws. Not even you, Whis. Then the ground moved. No sound, just a vibration, the kind that skips the air entirely and goes straight into your bones. And then the voice. Soft, childlike, but carrying something inside it that the Grand Priest had never once heard in his entire immortal existence. Zeno, Grand Priest, what have you done? The Grand Priest's hand stopped. His laugh died, completely in under a second, like someone had reached inside him and pulled the sound out by the root. He turned around. Zeno was standing there, but not the Zeno anyone knew. His clothes were soaked through with sweat. His eyes, always blank, always simple, always carrying that childlike innocence, were wide open now, too wide, like he'd seen something he was never, ever supposed to see. Grand Priest, Zeno-sama, you're here. Zeno, I asked you a question, Shinkan. I asked you what you did. I was enforcing the laws. That is my purpose. That has always been my laws? Zeno's voice didn't shake, but everything around them did. Zeno, you broke them. You broke Goku. You broke all of them. His voice cut off. One beat of silence. Then, very quietly, I thought you were mine, Shinkan. I thought you were with me. But what you did today, you didn't do that for me. You did that against me. You don't understand, Zeno-sama. This was all for you, for your safety, for the balance of every universe. My safety? Zeno looked directly into the Grand Priest's eyes. No anger, no rage, something much quieter, and because of that, much worse. I never asked you to keep me safe, Shinkan. I never asked you to do any of this. You made that choice. You, not me. The Grand Priest opened his mouth. Zeno, don't. He closed it. Zeno, I trusted you. More than anyone, more than the angels, more than the Kais. I trusted you, and you used that to do whatever you wanted and call it my will. A long silence. It's over for all of us. And absolute silence fell across everything. Even the wind stopped blowing. Even the light itself seemed to fade away. The Grand Priest, with all his arrogance, all his certainty, all his centuries of absolute authority, could not find a single word. Zeno's eyes didn't burn, they didn't rage, they simply looked. And that was worse than any attack the Grand Priest had ever faced in his existence. Every person watching understood it in that moment. What was coming wasn't just a battle, it was something older, something the entire system had been quietly building toward for longer than any of them knew. Not just Goku and his allies fighting back, not just a war. The foundation of Zeno's world cracking from the inside, and beneath that crack, something rising. Then Goku opened his eyes. He was inside the dark fortress. The walls pulsed, slow, rhythmic, like a heartbeat that didn't belong to anything living. The air sat heavy on his shoulders. The darkness didn't just exist in the room, it watched. Goku pushed himself off the floor. His legs nearly gave out. He caught himself against the wall, waited one breath, then forced himself fully upright. What am I doing here? No answer. 3 silhouettes stood in front of him, still, completely still. Long black cloaks covered everything, their hands, their faces, the shape of whatever was underneath. But it wasn't their appearance that hit Goku first, it was their aura. Not evil, not good, something that existed in the space between those two things, something that had never had to choose. One of them held a massive book, open, one page, and on that page, an image. Goku burning in blue light, golden marks across his body. That's me. Another one spoke. The voice was wrong, layered, distorted, like more than one being was using the same mouth at the same time. So, he is the bearer of the golden marks. What does that mean? Who are you people?
Their stares pressed down on him, not aggressive, not threatening, just heavy. The kind of weight that makes the air feel like a wall closing in from every direction. Goku felt it building in his chest. I'll ask one more time, who are you? Nothing. All right. His energy exploded outward, violent, uncontrolled, the kind of flare that happens when a body is running on anger instead of power. Goku, if you won't speak, then your bodies will. He moved. One strike, clean, direct, full force into the nearest silhouette. The hood snapped back. Goku's fist stayed raised. His eyes didn't move from the face in front of him. It wasn't human. It wasn't Saiyan. It wasn't anything he'd fought, anything he'd seen, anything Whis had ever described to him in all their years of training. The face didn't belong to any race in any universe he knew existed. Goku, what are you? The figure didn't flinch, didn't step back, just looked at him with eyes that carried something ancient, something that had been waiting. The other two didn't move either, and for the first time in a very long time, Goku didn't know what his next move was. It's over for all of us. With an icy voice, the creature said, "Prepare to suffer, Son Goku." The ground split. No warning, no build-up, just a crack that ran directly beneath Goku's feet, and from inside it, black chains came. They moved like they were alive, wrapped around his wrists, his ankles, his chest, and then they didn't just hold him, they went in, through the skin, past the muscle, straight into something deeper than either of those things. Goku, what the hell? He pulled, his full strength, the chains didn't bend, and then the stealing started. Not just his ki, not just his power, his memories. He felt them leaving, pulled out of him one by one like pages torn from a book. Chi-Chi's face, Gohan's first steps, the hyperbolic time chamber, Vegeta across a battlefield, Krillin laughing, his grandfather's hands. Goku, no, those are mine. He screamed. Real pain. Not battle pain, not the kind that sharpens you, the kind that hollows you out. The three figures didn't move.
Their voices came together, not from their mouths, but from the walls, the floor, the ceiling, the fortress itself speaking through them. The three. First phase, purification of the body. The chains pulled tighter. Second phase, destruction of the will. Goku's knees hit the ground. The three. Third phase, judgment. Back on the battlefield, Zeno hadn't moved, but his face had changed. The color was gone from it. His eyes, still wide, still broken, were trembling now. When he spoke, his voice came out in pieces. Zeno, he is beginning to awaken. Bardock, the third founder of the Saiyans. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. The name landed on every single person there like a physical thing, not just heard, felt. Something about those syllables carried weight that didn't belong in the present, weight that came from somewhere much, much older. The Grand Priest stepped backwards, for the first time, not composed, not cold, not an arrogant, trembling, actually trembling. His foot hit the ground behind him like he'd forgotten how to control his own body. The Grand Priest, that name is not possible. Bardock hadn't moved at all. His eyes were open, wide, and the tears were already falling before he even registered they were there. Bardock, Bardock, my father. He said it like someone testing a word they thought they'd buried forever. Bardock, he's still alive? Whis, still locked inside the blue ring, still frozen at the edges, stared at Bardock with something that wasn't just shock. It was the look of someone rapidly rebuilding everything they thought they understood. Whis, your father. Is that the entity Zeno's own father once tried to erase him entirely? Bardock didn't answer. Whis, Bardock, how is something like that still alive? If Zeno's own father himself moved to erase him, he should be beyond gone. He should be something that never happened. Bardock, I don't know. His voice was barely above nothing. I was told he was gone. I was told there was nothing left. I believed it. I believed it my whole life. He looked at his own hands. Why didn't he come back? If he was alive, why didn't he ever? He stopped himself, jaw tight, eyes still wet. Around all of them, the energy shifted. Not an explosion, not a shockwave. Something slower and more terrifying. A vibration deep inside the fabric of everything, like a frequency that the universes themselves were producing. Like something at the very bottom of existence had just opened its eyes. The energy around them began to vibrate, as if something deep within the universes had started to awaken. The Grand Priest slowly raised his head and said in a deep voice, "We must leave this world immediately. No one can face Bardock if he fully awakens." Nobody argued. Nobody even hesitated. Zeno gave one silent nod and raised his hand. The rift opened in the center of the palace, not like a door, like a wound. It swallowed light going in, swallowed sound coming out, and the edges of it flickered like reality itself was having second thoughts. Zeno's voice came out thin, unsteady, wrong coming from him. Zeno, we will return to the past before he completely opens his eyes. Grand Priest, Zeno-sama, if we miscalculate even slightly, if we arrive 1 second too late, Zeno, then we don't arrive at all. That ended it. One by one, they stepped through. The rift closed behind them. The palace went silent. The darkness that followed wasn't empty. It breathed. Deep inside the abandoned palace, in a chamber that hadn't seen light in longer than most civilizations had existed, 2 eyes began to open, pale white.
like the sky in the seconds before judgment arrives and everything becomes unbearably clear.
The statue moved. Not fast, the opposite of fast. Each movement was deliberate, like something that had forgotten what urgency felt like because it had never needed to hurry. Stone fell from its body in massive chunks, thousands of tons crashing to the ground, splitting the floor beneath. Not violence, just dead skin falling away from something that no longer needed it. He stood. The ceiling cracked from the pressure of his presence alone. The walls groaned. The ground beneath his feet fractured in a perfect circle outward, like the earth itself was flinching. When he spoke, it didn't come from his mouth first. It came from the stone, from the floor, from somewhere underneath the concept of the room. How much time has passed since I was frozen here? The sky tore. Not one universe, all of them, every single universe simultaneously, like a cord pulled taut across existence, finally snapping. A sound that wasn't a sound, a tremor that had no origin point because it came from everywhere at once, and then Zeno's planet was gone. No impact, no beam, no battle. Silence followed, absolute and total. Bardock stood in what remained. He didn't look at the destruction. He looked outward, past the palace, past the debris, past the shattered sky, and he listened, not with his ears. The universes were still breathing, barely, but still. He moved through them with his perception, the way a hand moves through smoke, slow, searching, certain of what it's looking for. Then he stopped. This aura. Something shifted in his expression, not surprise, recognition, the kind that comes from something so deep in the blood it bypasses thought entirely. The blood of the Saiyans, it still flows within someone. He was quiet for a moment. His perception narrowed. Two energies, distinct, unmistakable, burning against the silence of everything else, like two coals in a dead fire. Two of them. He let that sit. My blood survived all of this. Not warmth in his voice, not relief. Something older than either of those things. Something that hadn't decided yet what it was going to do with what it had just found. Two distinct energies stood out clearly in his perception. One was very far away, distorted and hidden within the cosmic fog, Frieza's energy. The other was closer, small, but carrying an ancient signature that reminded him of his own. He moved toward it, crossing universes in a single step. Stars died as he passed them, not destroyed, not consumed, just gone. Like they'd never had the right to exist in the same space as something this old. Each step he took across the void left a trail of cold darkness where light used to be. He didn't notice. He didn't look back. One step, one universe. Another step, another universe gone behind him. And then he stopped. Above a small blue planet. Quiet, ordinary, the kind of world that shouldn't have registered to something like him at all. Seventh universe. He looked down at it. Something in his expression shifted. Not warmth, curiosity, the cold kind. This planet, Earth, how strange. He descended slowly. The moment his feet touched the ground, the planet answered. The tremor moved outward from that single point of contact. Not an earthquake, something deeper. The clouds didn't drift apart. They scattered like animals running. The oceans pulled back from the coastlines, rising, reacting to a presence they had no language for. Bardock closed his eyes. He reached outward with his perception, past the cities, past the mountains,
past everything loud and complicated, and found it. Small, quiet, tucked against a mountainside like it was trying not to be seen. An ordinary house. This weak but pure energy. He opened his eyes. The air around him stopped moving entirely. It is my blood. The wind died. The sky shifted from blue to gray in the span of a breath, like the atmosphere itself was holding still. Bardock raised his head toward the mountains on the horizon. When he spoke again, it was barely above a whisper, but it moved through the ground like the warning before a storm makes landfall. Then he walked, slow, unhurried, the walk of something that has never once needed to rush. Inside the house, Gohan was crying. Not loudly, the quiet kind, the kind that comes when the grief is too big for sound, when the body just leaks it out because there's nowhere else for it to go. He didn't fully understand it yet, not with his mind, but somewhere underneath all of that, in a place that didn't need words, he already knew. His father wasn't coming back. He sat with that, eyes wet, hands in his lap. And then, something changed. It came through the walls before it came through the door. A pressure, a presence, something that had no business being on this planet, standing this close, existing in the same air as a house this small and ordinary. Gohan's breath stopped. What is that? His body wouldn't respond. Not paralysis, something worse. The sensation of standing in front of something so fundamentally overwhelming that the body simply stops asking what to do next. Gohan, I can't breathe. Why can't I move my body? He forced his eyes shut. His fists tightened against his legs. I will never give up. His voice was shaking, but it was there. I have to get out of here. Those who did this, all of you will regret it, I promise you. Outside the door, Bardock stood still, listening. That voice, that small, trembling, completely outmatched voice pushing back against something it couldn't even comprehend, and meaning every word of it. He said nothing, but something moved behind his pale white eyes, something that hadn't moved in a very long time.
Gohan rushed out of the house, throwing on his battle clothes in a hurry. His heart pounded like war drums, and every beat echoed with fear inside his chest. In front of him, out in the open space, stood a gigantic creature unlike anything he had ever seen before. It was surrounded by a mysterious aura, yet no energy level could be sensed from it. Gohan froze. His eyes locked on the creature. Every muscle in his body tightened. He frowned hard and spoke in a sharp, cutting voice. "Who are you? What are you doing here?" The creature stood still. The silence stretched long and heavy, like the air before a storm. Then, slowly, it spoke, a voice like grinding stone, deep and ancient. "Your clothes are strange. Are you really a Saiyan? What is your name?" Gohan didn't flinch. His voice came out steady, though heat burned underneath every word. "Son Goku, son of Son Goku, now you answer my question." The creature's eyes moved over him slowly, not with fear, not with curiosity, something colder than that. It formed a smile, wide and terrible, and said, "Son Goku, I see." It tilted its head slightly and continued, voice dropping even lower. "It is clear you are not the one who awakened me. I can feel it. Your power," it paused, almost like it was tasting the words, "is weak, very weak." Gohan's jaw tightened. The creature's smile didn't fade. If anything, it grew darker as it added, "Anyway, since you are here, tell me, who destroyed the Saiyan planet?"
Something inside Gohan cracked. The anger that had been simmering rushed up fast and hot. I don't know who you are. I don't know why you're here, but this is my home. You're standing outside my home, so if you don't tell me right now why you came... He didn't get to finish. Bardock calmly raised both hands and made a slow, almost lazy gesture toward him. No movement, no blast, no sound. But even from that distance, without a single touch, Gohan felt it, a deep, crushing buzz that split through his skull like a blade. Even from a distance, without touching him, Gohan felt it deep buzzing inside his skull. A pain that felt like it came from the depths of the ocean surged through him. He fell silent, his fists clenched tightly in the air. "Stop that!" His voice cracked, but the anger behind it was real. "Stop it right now!" Bardock lowered his hands. The buzzing stopped instantly. He looked at Gohan with eyes completely empty of warmth and said flatly, "I am not here to play games with children. There is another Saiyan nearby. I can sense his power, hiding like a rat in the dark. I will go meet him instead." He turned and began to walk. Each footstep landed like a hammer against the earth. Gohan's body was still shaking. His legs barely held him, but he forced his voice out anyway, rough, broken, desperate. "Wait! Please, stop!" Bardock paused. He did not turn around. Gohan steadied himself, swallowed hard, and spoke clearly. "Train me. I will tell you everything about who destroyed the Saiyan planet, every detail." A long silence, then Bardock turned his head slightly, just enough. An icy laugh came out of him, not warm, not amused, sharp and cold, like metal in winter. "Train you?" He turned fully now, looking at Gohan the way someone looks at something small and insignificant. "I can pull that information from your mind without giving you anything in return." He took one slow step forward. "But you carry something in your blood, something old, something that reminds me of my own lineage." His expression shifted, not softer, but more deliberate. "So I will not give you training. I will give you something far beyond that, something that will multiply your power to a level your mind cannot even picture right now." Gohan blinked. His voice came out unsteady. "Descended from you? Something more valuable than training?" He shook his head slightly. "I don't understand what you mean." But then, his father's face flashed in his mind, the reason behind everything. He pushed the confusion aside. He pushed the fear aside. And he answered, voice unsteady but firm, "If it can bring my father back, then I accept, whatever it is." Bardock looked at him for a long moment. Then that smile returned, slow, wide, and deadly. "I will give you a single drop of my blood, just one drop." He let the words hang in the air before continuing, voice low and absolute. "Either you control the power inside it, or you die on the spot, right here, no second chance." He tilted his head slightly. "Do you agree?" Gohan's heart pounded like a drum. He had no other choice. In a shaky but firm voice, he said, "I have no choice. I accept. I'll do whatever it takes to bring my father back." The moment those words left his mouth, Bardock moved. He grabbed Gohan's hands with inhuman strength. His skin was rough like stone, cold and ancient. From his palm, blood began to flow, heavy, dark droplets, falling one after another, each one pulsing with terrifying energy. The instant they touched the ground, they evaporated. No trace, just heat. Bardock raised his hand. The drops of blood glowed, dark crimson like dying stars. He held it out toward Gohan and spoke in a voice as cold as death itself. "Drink and let your body decide whether you deserve to live or not." Gohan looked at it. His heart was hammering. His throat was completely dry. He stepped forward anyway, and he swallowed it. The moment the blood touched the inside of his mouth, everything changed. The light vanished from Gohan's eyes. A muffled sound escaped him first, small, confused, then it built, rising fast, tearing upward, and exploded into a scream that split the sky open. He dropped to his knees. Both hands clutched his stomach like something inside was trying to break out. His face twisted beyond recognition. His eyes rolled back. Every vein across his body swelled and pushed against his skin like ropes pulled too tight. His body began to shake, violently, uncontrollably. A supernatural heat climbed from somewhere deep inside him, wrapping his entire body in dark red steam. His breathing came out in ragged animal bursts, each inhale harder than the last. His voice grew weaker. His hands pressed against the ground, trembling, struggling to hold his own weight. Then it came, a torrent of blood spilling from his mouth onto the earth beneath him. His body went rigid. His face froze. His eyes stayed wide open, staring at nothing, seeing nothing. And whatever scream was left inside him, the void swallowed it whole. A terrible silence covered the area. There was no sky nor earth, only an endless sea of blood, dark, still, stretching infinitely in every direction. And floating on its surface, motionless, was Gohan. His face was covered in dark stains. His body felt like it belonged to someone else. Then a voice came, soft, close, right beside his ear, but from no direction at all. "Come to me. I have something to show you." Gohan's eyes snapped open. He screamed, raw, full, shaking, and shot upright. His breathing came in uneven bursts. His hands pressed against the surface beneath him, and he felt it, warm, thick, wrong. Slowly, he looked down. His own reflection stared back at him from the blood below, but the face looking up at him was not his. Strange symbols were carved across his skin, deep, dark lines running from his forehead to his jaw, across his neck, down his arms, as if his body had been rewritten into something ancient, a map of suffering drawn in flesh. He stumbled backward. The blood clung to his feet, pulling, gripping, refusing to let him move freely. "Where am I?" he cracked. "What is this place?" Silence. Then, whispers, not from one direction, from everywhere, from beneath the surface. Dozens of voices, layered under the blood like something buried long ago and not yet dead. He looked up. Enormous skulls floated above him, pale, massive, drifting slowly through the dark air like they had always been there. Gohan backed away further, his whole body trembling. Then, a scream tore through everything. Not human, not animal, something older than both, so powerful that the blood around him began to bubble and boil, rippling outward in every direction. The whispers grew louder, the skulls drifted closer, and Gohan stood there, shaking, terrified, alone in a world made of blood and darkness. Then, something shifted inside him. Slowly, painfully, he straightened up. His legs stopped retreating, his shaking hands curled into fists at his sides. He looked ahead, not at the skulls, not at the symbols on his skin, not at the boiling blood beneath his feet. He thought of his father, and in a voice low and quiet and absolutely certain, he said, "No, I can't die here. Father, I'm still fighting for you." He kept moving. but his mind wouldn't stop.
Where am I? His voice came out low, barely above a whisper. Why is the air so heavy? The blood, it never stops. The smell is suffocating me. He looked around, at the endless dark, at the boiling surface beneath his feet. Is this hell? Everything here is watching me. Even the darkness is alive. He kept walking anyway. Every step pulled him deeper into the blood. Every breath pressed down harder on his chest, like the air itself was burning from the inside. The skulls lined the sides in endless rows, mouths hanging open, smiling, patient, waiting for him to break. Then, in the distance, a castle, massive, black, ancient. Rivers of blood and lava poured from its walls, like the structure itself was bleeding. Gohan looked at it for a long moment. Then he walked toward it. It was the only path forward. The iron gates were enormous, decorated with shapes he couldn't name. The walls towered over him and blocked out whatever passed for sky in this place. He moved slowly. Fear ran through his veins like cold poison. But underneath it, his father's name, his purpose, a quiet voice that didn't shout, didn't demand, just whispered, "Keep going." He reached the gate, didn't touch it. It opened on its own. The screech of metal tore through the air like something in terrible pain, like the world itself was suffering. Gohan's jaw tightened. He stepped through. His footsteps echoed through the dark corridor, sharp and alone. Then the gate slammed shut.
He spun around instantly and threw his full strength against the metal, both hands, everything he had. It didn't move, didn't even shake. The surface vibrated under his palms, warm, pulsing, as if the castle had a heartbeat, as if it was swallowing him alive. He turned back around. A dark staircase stretched ahead of him, climbing upward into nothing. The anger inside him sharpened. Good. He used it. He let it push out the fear and replace it with something harder, something colder. His father was worth more than this fear. He climbed. The moment he stepped deeper into the castle, he stopped. Ahead of him stood another door. Gigantic, but completely different from the gate behind him. Where the iron gate had been brutal and ancient, this one was something else entirely, and Gohan stood before it, eyes fixed, the look of hardened resolve carved into every line of his face.